launched the report.
In its recently launched 27th annual report on the state of human rights and freedoms in Uganda for 2024, the Uganda Human Rights Commission raised concern at the continued violation of rights of women human rights defenders.
Women human rights defenders are individuals who advocate for women's rights and gender equality.
The report noted that while all defenders face challenges, women human rights defenders were facing various peculiar ones.
Women human rights defenders often face violent arrests and mistreatment, violating their constitutional rights. Another challenge observed is restrictive legislative environment. The defenders face violence, intimidation, and harassment for challenging extractive industries or advocating for gender equality, often labeled as anti-development.
Others included digital attacks in addition to inadequate funding.
The women human rights defenders are increasingly targeted online through harassment, smear campaigns, and digital violence.
Charity Kalebo is the executive director of the Electoral Laws Institute.
Communities think of women a particular way. For example, in my instance, every time they see me on political shows, they sometimes say, why is a woman taking on political issues? Why isn't it a man that is seated there? You're supposed to be in Mothers Union. And fellow women raise these issues. People will want to abuse them, mainly using sexist words. That's why you're ugly. That's why you're not beautiful. They use those words against women human rights defenders.
However, the Uganda Human Rights Commission made some key recommendations, including amending the Public Order Management Act of 2013. They also want the Finance Ministry to increase budgetary allocation to enable gender-based violence prevention and justice institutions to fulfill their mandate. The Commission also wants more investigations by police into the violent arrests and conclude investigations into violations against human rights defenders and bring the perpetrators to book. These have been welcomed by some women human rights defenders who, however, say government needs to implement the recommendations immediately.
There is a human rights defenders bill which is before Parliament. It should be passed. We also need to ensure that the Computer Misuse Act is enforced, especially against people who use online platforms to instigate hate, violence, doxing, and any other form of abuse against women human rights defenders and any other citizens of Uganda.
In terms of investigating the issues and also providing a way of handling the criminal matters around or the civil matters around the arrest of women human rights defenders. Women should not be lowered to only being sexual objects. They too have a message. They too defend the rights. They too have a cause, and they have equal rights.
In October last year, the National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders Uganda launched a report which identified the absence of a regulatory framework for human rights defenders protection services as one of the key challenges. I'm Benjamin Jumbe, NTV Weekend Edition.
Thank you very much.